Did you know that on this channel every single Saturday I go live? That's always at 3 p.m. Central, which is 10 p.m. Rome, 9 p.m. London. And I will be live tomorrow as well, Saturday the 13th, 3 p.m. I'll see you there. And welcome to Warhammer Fantasy. That... oh my gosh, Ridley Scott, what's your problem, mate? Chaos Army right there, 2,000 points on the table. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Throne of Khorne. Hey, Mr. Scott, I've got a riddle for you. Do you know what game I'm playing? Well, I'll give you a little hint. The machine is telling me, finish him, Scotty. It's telling me, finish him. The things I do for you, noble ones. So, of course, the new trailer, as you know, the official trailer of Gladiator 2 has finally been released, and of course, a swarm of you have asked me, please, Metatron, to do a react. Alright, so I'll do that. Now, of course, jokes aside, I have nothing against Ridley Scott. Wait, I said jokes aside. Okay, Ridley Scott is an arrogant muppet, but regardless of that, let's see, you know, he made us wait 20 years for this, so, you know, maybe they did it right, maybe it's historically accurate, maybe it's the best thing I've ever seen, yeah. Maybe, let's go. So, I'm gonna put myself top right in a second. Okay, let's go. Okay, already in the first second, we see a shot of the Colosseum from above, and I've got to say, so the architecture has been recreated really well, and we can see that they have these possible extensions for the roof, extendable roof, which would provide protection from the elements, like if it's raining, if it's really hot, and these were absolutely a thing. But we can see they're also having a naval battle inside the Colosseum. Now, these did happen, but it very much depends on what the setting is, and I don't want to speak too soon, so I want to see if they tell us when it is specifically set, because depending on when it's set, it's either really good or it's nonsense. So let's go.
I remember that day.
Gladius looks good, but is this like a remembrance from the first one?
I never forgot it.
Maximus Decimus Meridius. So that was a very, very interesting fictionalized but realistic character that we had in the first one. Excellent performance by Russell Crowe, of course. And I remember this is the scene which was, of course, nonsense from a historical standpoint, but it was spectacular from an epic standpoint as a movie, where the Emperor himself fights with him and dies. This, of course, didn't happen. That's not how the Emperor died. He got strangled in his path. But hey, it's a lot more epic this way. We have the whole progress, character creation, learner curve, and the Praetorian Guard was like, oh yeah, kill our Emperor, absolutely. But we're not here to complain about Gladiator 1, are we?
That a slave could take revenge against an emperor.
Where were you born?
I don't know. I never knew a mother nor a father.
Interesting shot of what appears to be, of course, North Africa. I'm gonna say Egypt, probably. Let me go back a little bit. This was from the previous one, right? So, well, actually, I don't have any. Yeah, these structures are, of course, North African, but I'm not sure if this is gonna be Egypt or not. Well, we'll see if they show a little more.
Mother nor a father.
You will be my instrument.
Why?
Of course, I love Denzel Washington, and even though I complained about his possible casting as Hannibal for historical accuracy reasons, in this case, since I believe he's some kind of slave owner, gladiator owner, someone who was a gladiator and won his freedom, that is absolutely plausible, it's very historically possible, and therefore I have no problems with it.
You.
Did you hear that crowd?
Alright, so already we have a lot to say about this. So this is a triumphant moment where, you know, you have the emperor or maybe a general, so a legatus, enter the arena, the city, whatever it is. It's something that happened a lot in ancient Rome. They loved it, and also Ridley Scott loves these, since we also have this kind of introduction to the Emperor of Gladiator 1. Now, the thing that we need to say, though, is that this is not a historically accurate reproduction of what ancient Rome would have looked like in period. So I already see a lot of problems here. Problem number one, the statues are not painted. Now, I have an entirely dedicated video to dismantle this idea that white marble statues were a thing in ancient Rome. they weren't. And again, link in the description below. Today I'm going to put a lot of links, but suffice to say, kind of briefly want to mention that in period we know for a fact that Roman statues and even Greek statues would have been in full color. They wouldn't have been painted. The skin would have the color of the skin. The clothes, the armor would be all in color, and to the point that they would even like paint the hair of the emperor. For example, the famous statues of Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus Augustus would have been in color, and to the point they would even draw the iris in the eyes. So seeing all of these white statues is perpetrating this myth that everything was white in period. It's not. We have found pigments on the statues, and also we see iconography where we actually see what statues look like in period, and they are always in color. And that's the same about for the columns. So columns, temples, everything would have been full of color. So this is as if you have all the ancient Romans resurrected, but today. This is what this looks like, and if this was supposed to be a representation of Roman period, then we should see color all over the place. It would have been extremely colorful as a civilization and a period. So already have a little bit of a problem with that. Let's go.
The greatest.
Okay, yes, it is a triumphant moment. I mean, his armor is looking good. I don't have a problem with that. So he's wearing what is called now, with a modern term, musculata, and it's the kind of armor that usually only either emperors or generals, high-ranking officers would be able to afford. We occasionally see it in iconography in a shorter form, because there are two versions, the long one, which is this one, and the short one, which usually cuts over here at the waist. Both appear, but usually the shorter one occasionally also appears in lower officers, whereas the full ones normally in iconography they are connected to high-ranking officers all the way up to the emperor. And this legionary here, who's probably some kind of guard, I love the fact that he's not wearing braces finally, and he's wearing scale. Now, scale was absolutely a thing. It was called lorica squamata. So yeah, I don't have a problem that he's wearing scale, because he's probably some kind of high-end, because this would have been very, very expensive but relatively rare. But so far, so good.
Temple Rome ever built.
Alright, so I want to go back there for a second, because we of course have an introduction to more people, and here is when I'm starting to have more problems. So of course we see the senators. I love looking at that, but these guards here look really weird. They're also wearing, I don't know if they're supposed to be Praetorian guards, but they're also wearing what appears to be some kind of muscolata, but it doesn't look right. The shoulder plates don't look right, but most importantly, they are wearing scale skirts, and these existed, but in the medieval period. I don't recall any soldier wearing in the Roman era, and I've looked at a lot of iconography over the years, a little bit for passion, a little bit because I'm a Roma boo. I don't remember this half musculata, half scale skirt. I've never seen that, so that's kind of weird. And then we see two emperors this time. So why do we have two emperors and not one? Well, this already tells us when this is set. This is set in 1211 AD, because these two are clearly Emperor Caracalla and Emperor Geta. These will be the successors of Septimus Severus, but the thing is that if they're both alive, this is absolutely 1211, because Caracalla will eventually kill his younger brother Geta. All of this historical inaccuracy actually made me a little hungry. But now, dear noble ones, I would like to take a moment to mention the kind sponsor that made this video possible, Magic Spoon. Now, Magic Spoon has been my choice cereal for over a year and a half now. I really like it, and it is my morning choice. That is because it provides protein. It's really good if you are a little bit carb conscious, you don't want to have too much sugar in your overall daily diet. But today's sponsorship is going to be the most authentic sponsorship when it comes to Magic Spoon that you've ever seen in your life. Here is why. So of course they send me boxes, right? Because you need to review the product, you always have to evaluate it. But among the boxes, so they sent me Frosted, which is pretty good, but then they made the mistake of sending blueberry muffin. Why do I say mistake? Well, I'll show you, because some time passes between me receiving these boxes and then when I can actually film the video. But as you can see, I've already eaten the whole thing. So, blueberry muffin is a cereal killer. This thing is the bomb. So, Magic Spoon cereal has 0 grams of sugar, 13 or 14 grams of protein, and 4 to 5 net grams of carbs in each serving, with a total of 140 calories per serving. Honey Nut has 1 gram of sugar. Also, the other really neat thing about Magic Spoon is the fact that it's really, really nostalgic in a way. It really reminds you of the sort of cereal that we used to enjoy as kids when we were younger, and taste-wise, the profile is also very nostalgic. Magic Spoon is keto-friendly, high-protein, gluten-free, grain-free, soy-free, wheat-free, and naturally flavored. They also have these Magic Spoon treats, which are great when you are on your way to the gym or maybe to work. They have 11 grams of protein, 1 gram of sugar, and 1 to 2 net grams of carbs. They are great as pre- or post-workout fuel or anytime snack. You get marshmallow and chocolatey peanut butter. Of course, you can also build your own variety box and you can choose between lots of different awesome flavors. So click the link in the description below and use my code Metatron, or alternatively go to magicspoon.com/Metatron to get a $5 off your Magic Spoon order. And Magic Spoon is so confident with the quality of their product that they have a 100% happiness guarantee, which means that if for whatever reason you don't like it or you're not satisfied with your purchase, you will get your money refunded. No questions asked. And for my Canadian and British subscribers, Magic Spoon also ships to Canada and the UK. And as always, massive thanks to Magic Spoon for sponsoring my video. The shields that we see here are clearly Scuta, and they are based on the Dura Europos finding when it comes to how big they are, and I like that. They don't appear to be the most historically accurate shields I've ever seen, but they're actually pretty good. I don't have a problem with the shields per se. Some people speculated that these parts, you see the little lightnings here, wouldn't have been painted, but they would have actually been, they would be little pieces of metal, but then again, that's speculative, so I don't have a problem with that. At least I'm happy that the shields look the right size and the right shape. For once. Let's continue.
Rome ever built. The Colosseum.
Alright, so we do see now that we have placed this temporally, then yes, this naval battle is nonsense, because if we are in the 3rd century, then it would have been at least 100 years since the last Roman naval battle within the Colosseum would have happened. Now, did they happen? Absolutely. Do I understand why they chose to show them even though it's not the correct time period? Yes, I do. They look amazing. In fact, as someone who's going to watch the movie from a cinematic perspective, I'm happy that they're showing it. This is going to look amazing. I mean, the sort of ships we would see here, they should be sort of smaller than the Trireme, for obvious reasons, space. But I think it's going to look great. So as someone who's going to watch the movie, I'm not angry with the fact that he still chose to go with this. It's a little, we could say, artistic freedom or liberty that they can take. But since you do want me to sort of underline the historical accuracy or lack thereof, then I have to say that for 211 AD, it's a bit too late for these. We don't have any document that tells us that these were still done at this time.
Because this is what they believe in. Power.
Okay, so yes, we are seeing that they are reenacting this guy is wearing a bronze Corinthian helmet, and they are reenacting some kind of naval battle. Once again, we see the leather braces. But by this point, I'm kind of giving up. I mean, we'll always see them unless I produce a movie in the classical period. But another thing I want to underline is, once again, we see leather armor, that it's never really a thing. We see a scaled manica for the Gladiator, and then here more scale. So basically for this production, they're really into scale. I have never seen so much scale in iconography, to be honest. As I was saying, it's a very rare type of uniform that would have been rather exotic even for the Romans. And normally it's being very expensive. We shouldn't really see it all over the place, not to mention that we can also see that this has been neglected. The helmets, the armor, they look like they're either rusted, if this is iron, or they allowed the patina to develop, if this is some form of copper, bronze, maybe arsenical bronze. We'll talk a little bit more about that also, because if we see more helmets, I'll be able to kind of give more commentary on what it should actually look like. Right, so when it comes to the representation of the emperors, I am a little weirded out, because I might be wrong, but the over-exaggeration, the gold, it looks like he's wearing some form of makeup. This makes them look more like Elagabalus, so Elagabalus in English, I just pronounced it one with phonemic vowel length in classical Latin if you're interested. For now on, I'm just going to say Elagabalus. This looks more like a representation of Elagabalus than it does either Caracalla or Geta. I don't know who is who, we'll have to kind of Google that, but it's a little over-exaggerated. I don't think that this is a good representation of the emperors.
General Acacius.
Also, I'd like to say Pedro Pascal looks damn good in armor, I'll give him that.
There are victories.
Yet still to come.
Dressing the emperors in complete gold is there to sort of underline the fact that these are people that are so rich and hate the poor, and they just overly wealthy in a negative way. So I understand that when you create a movie production and all the props, there are also some sort of subconscious messages that you want to send to the audience in order to sort of convey a certain state of mind or psychological reaction to the imagery that you're seeing. So I understand why they're doing it, but once again, this is too much, particularly when it comes to the sort of thoracomagus, so the padded garment that they're wearing underneath that you can see comes outside. If they were wearing some kind of very shiny bronze, sure, and then this would have been regular, and also the fact that it's so decorated makes it very, very Roman. I appreciate that, because usually the Greek counterparts are not as decorated as Romans when it comes to musculata armor, but then again, this is sort of overly done. But let's see who is who, because by the looks of it, I would say that this is Caracalla and this is Geta, since Geta was the younger and Caracalla was the older, not to mention that Caracalla will kill, spoiler alert I guess, his brother historically, so I would say that this is Caracalla, but I might be wrong, so let me double check. Okay, so for what I'm reading here, I actually think I was wrong, because we see that Joseph Quinn is Emperor Geta and Fred Hetchinger is Emperor Caracalla. So, unless my eyes are deceiving me, this is Fred Hetchinger. Yeah, I think he is Caracalla. So this is supposed to be Caracalla and this is Geta. That's weird. It should be the other way around.
Yet still to come.
Alright, so now we have some sort of naval battle, so actual naval battle, not the reproduction at the Colosseum, which I believe connects the two in a way if we are seeing both on in the movie. And I'm actually looking forward to this because I really, really like to see classical period naval battles. We see that there are some form of catapults, I believe, that are of course mounted onto the ships. That is absolutely correct historically. And also we should see some forms, depending on which siege this is, but there were some instances, for example, sieges that happened in Sicily, where catapults and other forms of artillery were mounted on the battlements to in fact counter the attacks. So this is really cool. And look at this. Yeah, I can see a siege tower there. So that is pretty good.
So many subjects.
Alright, and this is a very good image here to kind of decide what's going on. So the ships are pretty large. I believe these are at least quinquereme rather than trireme, which is coherent with what we would expect during an actual siege, because at the end of the day the Roman navy, contrary to popular belief, was actually pretty strong. Maybe it wasn't as professional as the Carthaginian navy, but it was really, really strong nonetheless. But I do have a couple of things to say. So I will of course point out the positive and the negatives. When it comes to the positives, I'm happy with the costume department. When it comes to the Romans, they are wearing lorica segmentata here. These are of course absolutely coherent with the time period, because lorica segmentata were used as a form of plate banded segmented armor for 3 centuries. So absolutely this would still be the case. But one thing that I'm a little confused by is that I see 2 officers. So this guy here is clearly a centurion, because we can see Scott is wearing the horizontal crest on his helmet, but so is this guy. So do they have 2 centuries on this? Because a centurion should be leading a century, which is 80 fighting men and 20 slaves. That's what a century is. So are there supposed to be 160 men plus 40 slaves? So 200 men on this? Regardless of that, I'm happy with the soldiers here, the standard bearers. They're wearing the wolf skin, that's absolutely coherent, and they're wearing lorica hamata, probably called in period lorica gallica, since it was gained, so it's basically male, and they're wearing the military belt. So the soldiers look really, really good. I'm happy with that very much. But the rowers, they look medieval to me. I mean, they're wearing the cingulum, which automatically tells us these are soldiers, so these are not slaves, they are soldiers, otherwise they wouldn't be wearing this. But then again, they are dressed like medieval rowers to me, like in the Venetian sort of context of the 12th, 13th century, so this looks a little weird. And another problem I have, up here, I'm happy that once again what appear to be high officers are wearing musculata. That's okay, although I hope that they are not leather musculata. But these shields look absolutely horrible. Full metal, thick border, bolted, flat, absolutely not. So I wish that whoever chose this didn't, but let's continue.
She must feed them.
They can eat war.
Yeah, I do believe that he's wearing some sort of makeup in that scene here. Oh wow, this looks amazing. Ship's on fire. This is incredible. From a cinematic perspective, I gotta give it to them. This looks really beautiful. Alright, so we see more soldiers here. The Loiga are all fastened correctly, so points for you, Scotty, for doing this. I don't know what the heck this guy's wearing. Looks like some chair, like he made an improvised armor out of a chair or a basket, but whatever. And why is he holding the Gladius with a counter grip? Well, I don't know. Maybe he was just drawing it with the left hand. I don't know. Okay, so I saw something interesting, and who's this lady with a breastplate? An actual, literally female breastplate and the freaking leather. Oh my gosh. Before we talk about her, I want to talk about the guy in the background here. Because this guy fighting here, oh, we can say a lot about him. And this guy who's a maniac who's not wearing a helmet for whatever reason. But yeah, if I can stop it at the right moment. Yes, so he's wearing a Montefortino type of helmet. Now, this type of helmet was actually quite popular during the Roman Republic, and for this time period, it is a little late for the Montefortino, but by reading the actual sources, we do know that they were still used. So just because you have new types of helmets, like the Imperial Gallic, for example, Type H, which is my favorite, it doesn't mean that previous types, such as the Coolus, or in this case, the Montefortino, would just disappear automatically. They weren't ditched. People would keep them. Sometimes they would update them, like, for example, a bronze Montefortino, since everyone was wearing iron, but some soldiers decided to tin it so that it would kind of look like iron and make you, you know, fashionable, like the new cool guys that are all wearing iron. But regardless, is it possible for a soldier of 211 AD to be wearing a Montefortino helmet? Well, I suppose so. Should be rare, on the rarest side, but it's not completely impossible. The one thing, though, that I want to complain a little bit is the color. So this is supposed to be bronze. The thing is, though, that when we say bronze, there are loads of different types of bronze, and I have a dedicated video, this is the thumbnail, link in the description, that talks about what period bronze in this specific time would have looked like from a color perspective and in general properties, also all the way down to its constituents. Because you see, when you say bronze, it really is an umbrella term, isn't it? In the sense that we have many different types of bronze, starting from arsenical bronze, which didn't even have tin in it, all the way up to tin bronze. But even in that case, even when we say tin bronze, so you have classical bronze, modern bronze, commercial bronze, architectural bronze, aluminium bronze, tin bronze, arsenical bronze, beryllium bronze, silver bronze, silicon bronze, chrome bronze, cadmium bronze, zirconium bronze, titanium bronze. Okay, basically bronze is chocolate. Doesn't matter what you put in it, it's still chocolate. I could go for some chocolate right now. Now, even though the type of bronze that we are usually used to today has this reddish brown color, period bronze of this period here would have more normally looked like a sort of dull gold yellowish brass instead. And this is actually well represented on games such as Assassin's Creed Origins and Assassin's Creed Odyssey and even Conan Exile. So if it were me, rather than giving them the bronze that is normally brownish, I would have gone for a more dull gold type of color for authenticity's sake. Now, once again, I don't know who she is. It pisses me off that she's got a little grip here, which kind of makes it look like a Victorian bow, but regardless, let's continue. Alright, so here we have Pedro Pascal with a different type of armor to the one that we were looking before. In general, the problem that I have here is, once again, the braces, but also the fact that this guy didn't even bother to fasten his cheek plates of his helmets, which means that this thing is gonna flap. So that's another little problem that a real soldier of the time, a professional of the time, wouldn't do. They would all fasten under the chin the cheek plates of their helmets. Absolutely, no questions about that. And as we always see, this is a typical movie trope, but the hero, the protagonist, the expensive actor, Pedro Pascal, is not wearing a helmet because you want to show his face. Usually, if I was a movie maker, so what I would do is have him lose the helmet during the fight rather than just decide to, you know, do this, because that would be insane. It is kind of strange that they seem to have some sort of explosive catapult shots. So yeah, that's kind of very choreographic, but historically it's kind of weird. Maybe a little bit of Greek fire, but I mean, this is like full-on explosive from an artillery bombardment.
The arena turns slaves into gladiators, the gladiators into free men.
You have something in you.
Okay, it's nice that we see a provincial amphitheater here, which absolutely were a thing, because even though usually in the movies we always see gladiators fight in the actual Colosseum, which clearly was a thing, but it's also nice to see that and underline the fact that these sort of amphitheaters would have been common throughout the entirety of the Roman world. And the fact that we have a certain level of inclusivity in this shot, which, you know, I always complain when it's not historical, but here is absolutely fine. In fact, gladiators, combatants were taken from all over the place, from all over the empire, and of course, beyond. The Romans didn't discriminate. They hated everyone equally.
I knew it from the start.
Did you now?
Okay, I still see here, yeah, a centurion in the back. Gosh, that looks amazing. This is a beautiful shot.
That rage is your gift.
So, okay, so I just saw a rhino. We do have iconography that shows rhinos as other sort of exotic beasts that were in fact represented and cast inside the Colosseum during hunting games, which are a separate type of game compared to the actual gladiatorial fights. But why is there a rhino there, and why did it growl like that?
This is about survival!
And welcome to Warhammer Fantasy. That, oh my gosh, Ridley Scott, what's your problem, mate? Chaos Army right there, 2,000 points on the table. Blood for the Blood God. Skulls for the Throne of Corn.
Survive!
Yeah, a rhino riding gladiator is absolute nonsense from a historical standpoint. So, I mean, Ridley, maybe next time make a movie on Warhammer Fantasy. If you do that, I'll watch it. I'll watch it. I love it.
Hold together, and when it charges, break for the wall.
Oh, it's already covered in blood even before the so they don't wash it, and I kind of it kind of gives the idea that this is something that happens a lot, but once again. Wait, what weapon was he using? Is that a medieval flail? That was a medieval flail, so I haven't got a clue what's going on here, but this whole scene here, you can like it if you want. Fantasy.
Whose head could I give you that would satisfy this fury?
Slanish.
The entire Roman armies.
Too much?
Alright, so now he is clearly using some form of crossbows. If they made it a little bigger and he would put it against his belly, it could have been believable, because those sort of primitive crossbows did exist in the classical period in Greek Sicily.
The general will do.
Rome must fall.
Good luck with that.
I need only give it a push.
They're drinking wine, which of course was a drink. Back in the day, wine has been a drink in Italy since literally ever. But here I want to give them a little bit of a redeeming point. At least one of the columns is indeed painted. So, thank you. Yeah, this it is what it is. I mean, it's kind of it's a good looking outfit, and of course it looks great on Pedro Pascal, but with that being said, it's only loosely inspired. It has a Medusa's head with these sort of like very mythological imagery of either gods or mythological monsters that people would have been familiar with, absolutely found in iconography when it comes specifically to Lorica Muscolata. So I don't have a problem with that necessarily, but in general the outfit as a whole, it's not that great. It looks like this guy is using a pilum in hand-to-hand combat. We do have historical mentions of that being done. In fact, one of these is in the Battle of Alesia, when we know that the Romans did use the pila as spears. They're not the best type of spear that you can use, but they can be used in hand-to-hand combat. Although then again, by the looks of it, it's too short, so I think it's been cut to shape. Yes, it looks like it's like an in-between. It's like a little bit of a pilum, but then it's definitely been cut short. So still sort of a fantasy idea. But the fact that right next here we've got a combatant who's wielding 2 gladi, well, there is historical example of that. In fact, within the gladiator, these are not gladiators, I don't know what they are, but for the gladiators, there was a type of gladiator called the Dimakairus who was indeed dual-wielding gladi. So that one is fine.
This ring belonged to Maximus.
I appreciate the little mention sort of to connect to people who really enjoyed Maximus, who is clearly not going to be here unless he comes back as a zombie and this becomes an undead movie. But in general, I like that there is a little sort of fan service and mention, little cameo in there. Appreciate. Easter egg, if you will.
Now I give it to you. What is the dream of Rome? For people are not free.
Yeah. This would have been such a beautiful shot if it wasn't for the bracer.
I was owned. Now I will control an empire.
I will not waste another generation of young men for their vanity.
Nice mail, and now they're going for the thumbs down. That is being mostly debunked, really, so we don't exactly know how they did that, but it is very likely that this to mean kill or finish him off is not a thing, and it was created sort of in the Victorian era and then perpetuated as myth. We don't exactly know how they do it, but it's very probable that they in fact did thumb up or thumb in to kind of mean kill, don't kill, like to represent the sword and sword out, sword in. That's more probable. We don't know 100%, but of course they went for this because it's a trope and everyone expects it in a way. Not a huge fan.
Strength and honor.
Yes, this is another one of those shots. At least the manica that we see here is a segmented manica, which they used both in the army and in gladiatorial combat, so I appreciate that. But I do hate these leather boots, I want to say cowboy boots, that this guy is wearing here. Not a huge fan of those. Yeah, I was right. They're going with the madman emperor trope, but once again, if that's how you wanted to represent him with all the makeup and the extravagant looks, then you should have totally said it at the time of Elagabalus. Then it would have been, I think, perfect for that sort of look. But considering the fact that they didn't, and once again we see scale skirts all over the place, I'd say that's a little bit of a strange connection right there. And that's Gladiator 2. I don't know yet, but another thing that I'm noticing is that there is a lot of death on the arena. We do have an idea of the actual statistics, and even though occasionally gladiators did die, this idea of every time there is a battle half the gladiators die is nonsense, because of course they are expensive, you need to train them, people have their favorites, and at the end of the day, gladiatorial combat and in general, all of these games are for the entertainment of the masses, and a lot of these would become actual VIP, sort of similar to how in our day and age we're really fixated with some MMA fighters, or we've got our favorite fighter in whatever martial art or Olympic fencing, whatever we're watching. So having gladiators die constantly, being beheaded like that by the Dimakairus with the 2 gladi, I mean, that's something that would have rarely happened, but in the majority of cases, most gladiators wouldn't die during fights. So that's one thing that I don't know yet. I need to watch the movie, but it kind of gives me this impression that I think they're going again with this idea of, oh, gladiators were constantly butchered and they were basically cannon fodder for the entertainment of the masses, because the Romans just wanted to see blood, 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 death, death, death. That is not the case, and in fact, when it comes to entertainment in conjunction with violence, I don't think the Romans were that different from us. What I mean by that is that at the end of the day, we enjoy watching a good boxing match, we enjoy watching MMAs, and some stuff can get really, really intense. I mean, when you see a Taekwondo match and the guy gets kicked, in the face, and the whole helmet flies and he's on the ground unconscious, that's violent entertainment. And with MMA, things can get really quite extreme, which is one of the reasons why I always have a lot of respect for MMA fighters and anyone who fights any form of full contact sport. I myself having tried Kyokushin Karate, which was one of the hardest things I've ever tried in my life. So Do we like that sort of violent entertainment? Yes. Did they like it back in the day? Yes. And I don't think that the Romans were particularly bloodthirsty in comparison to us, and that we can see when we look at actual statistics or how many gladiators died. Did they use weapons? Yes. But did they constantly try to kill each other? No. But I don't know if that's what they're going to show. Anyways, Gladiator 2. What do I think of this trailer? I think it's pretty bad. There are a few nice things. I want to say it's kind of bad, but with some good stuff. So some of the elements that I didn't like, I would say are pretty horrible. But in general, I was actually expecting worse, in the sense that at least some of the Roman armor looks good, some of the soldiers look believable, and even though, as I was saying, the naval battle that we saw probably wouldn't have happened in 211 AD, but it looks so good with the water that at the end of the day, I'm okay with them going a little bit out of historical accuracy. With that being said, we'll have to see how this looks at the very end, but I'm not very confident with Ridley Scott, and I'm kind of want to think that if I were to really meet a xenomorph, they would probably tell me, no, that's not what we do. Our blood is not acid. That's nonsense. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little trailer reaction. And when the movie's out, if you're interested, I'll absolutely check it out. Thank you so much for watching, number ones. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Also, don't forget to click the link in the description to check out the offer the Magic Spoon has for you. Goodbye.